Hello everyone. In a high-stakes engagement, featuring Dr. Fred Matiang'i on Pressure Point X platform, that was hosted by one, Maverick Aoko. Matiang'i was breathing fire, explaining the escalating issue of hired goons in Kenya, and the deteriorating state of national security where leaders are attacked by goons. In his remarks, Matiang'i was wondering why the National Intelligence Service could not detect the recruitment of goons by politicians in Kenya, but instead they could keep on tracking the movement of Genzes only to abduct them. He also questioned how armed criminal gangs could coordinate in broad daylight without the knowledge of our security infrastructure.
The over-politicization of the security sector. It has nothing to do with failure or lack of capacity. Kanja, who is the current Inspector General of Police, was the GSU commandant for the entire time I was Minister for Interior, and I worked with him. He's the officer who led our theater industry too. I know very well the DCI. I know Nuruddin, the Director General of the National Intelligence Service. We worked with him. He was the DPP. And I know their capacity. It's not a question of capacity. It's a question of over-politicization of the security sector. And I understand all these people work. They're all fine Kenyans who want to do a good job. But I think some of them probably are just stressed out by the politics of the day. And the politics of the day that's trying to provide cover to crime and criminal conduct. You can't tell me, for example, that the regional security team in central Kenya did not know that there were goons who are going to disturb the meeting in Kikuyu. If that was the case, and if I was the Minister for Interior, I would insist that that person be sacked. And it's not true. They know it is not true. The problem with our security sector is not capacity, period. It's not that we can't deal with these issues. We can. It is because of political accountability that is very low and the politicization of our security operations. And unless and until is what is going to destroy the country. And what our leaders in the security sector need to understand is this. Haiti did not start in one day. It started like this, where vigilante groups, informal gangs are moving around with the acquiescence and support of the government.
During this interview, Matiang'i accused the government for deploying state-masked goons to attacking leaders and maim them or even injuring them, therefore warning that these hired gangs would eventually turn against the government itself. In his reply, Matiang'i also blamed the government about criminal gangs, insisting on the deliberate failure of those in power and the over-politicization of security matters in the country. In his remarks, he gave a practical example on an instance Weinhe was the Cabinet Secretary of Interior whereby, through an official intelligence served to the president, he learned about a chief officer's camp which had been burned somewhere in Molo, whereby, in his immediate security response, he aggressively landed in Molo, very early in the morning, convening a high-stakes security profile, accompanied by very senior security officials led by the regional commander, from Rift Valley, the regional commissioner and the GSU commandant based in Molo, for a vigorous security operation whereby, by 9 a.m., the matter was fully investigated, and they could conclusively identify the criminal gangs who had burnt the chief's camp in Molo.
Let me give you an example. When I was Minister for Interior, one evening, actually one morning, early morning, around 3 o'clock in the morning, the president called me and told me he has learned from some of his friends that a chief's house has been burnt in Molo. I was in Molo at 7:20 in the morning. And when I got there, I was with the regional commissioner for Rift Valley. I was there with the regional police commander, Mr. Mboya, and the entire team. Before 9 in the morning, we had gotten the bottom of everything and decisions that had been taken. So you cannot tell me that the same security infrastructure that we had is not capable of knowing who beat Ososi on the streets of Kisumu, or that there are gangs that exist in Kisumu. They are paid by people who are known. So the question is, we have to fix our politics. And this is the point at which I tell Kenyans, the decision is in our hands. It's upon us to decide what kind of country we want. If we want this kind of country, then we can continue engaging in PR. But if we want a different country, I keep saying I am the real change candidate. I am interested in shaking the establishment to its bone marrow. To stop this kind of nonsense that we are seeing 6 decades after independence, you cannot have goons walking side by side with police officers. and then they are not arrested. We've had by-elections across the country where, some funny masked people walk in and beat people and walk away. It is not because the police don't have the capacity. I can confirm to you, as a former Minister of Interior, we have sufficient capacity in our country to keep the country safe, to police the country safely without a problem. Those things are happening because A, deliberate dereliction of duty, B, incompetence in terms of the management, and C, mostly the politicization of the security sector.
Matiang'i therefore emphasized on how his leadership could not allow such kind of nonsenses where the security systems keeps on failing in favor of politics of the day. According to him, the current security in Kenya is being used as a political tool, rather than a means to ensure safety and security of Kenyans, thereby insisting that this approach will eventually lead to a repressive policing, and a gangster community like Haiti.
When we had a problem of pickpocketing and muggings in Nairobi, one of the time when it reared its ugly head in 2018 after the general elections, we all agreed, and then the senior police officers who were on duty know what we did. We even trained an all-women commando unit, deployed them in supermarkets, in plain clothes and so on, highly trained police officers who are able to detect criminals, arrest them, and process them through the law. And then people have confidence to go on and do their work. So you asked me what I would do if I was president. I mean, this kind of nonsense cannot happen under my watch. I can't. You can't. How? Friends of ours in government don't understand it. This violence begets even more violence. When those thugs are done beating your opponents, they will need to beat someone else and to continue eating. You are riding on a tiger. They are the ones who are going to come to your houses and burn your houses and burn your family. In other words, when security is firm, clean, and well managed, it works for all of us, opposition or government. Just now in Kajiado, I was telling the public that, in the security sector, there's something we have in the internal security sector called the threat profile, that we deploy and spend our resources on the basis of the threats that we have in the country and what we need.
In his statement, Matiang'i proudly admitted how he used to review the work permits of foreign nationals working in Kenya, and anyone who was found in illegal business was deported back to their country forever and for good.
Foreign nationals in the country and, foreign nationals engaging in activities in this country, I am on record. I even see videos circulating around. When I, as Minister for Interior, I ordered a rescreening of our work permit system. And then I think I can take credit. I'm probably one of the only ministers who have done that before, to ensure that work permits are given to people who are doing jobs Kenyans cannot do. They cannot be given to people to come and do jobs Kenyans can do. We cannot deny our citizens opportunities and give them to foreigners. And look, I deported so many people. I have to be frank with you. I deported so many people, and the provisions of the Act allow the minister to take action in relation to foreigners in the best interest of the country. So where there are cases where, for example, foreign nationals have mistreated our own people, like the case where, you had foreign nationals beating up a Kenyan worker and so on, that's not a matter, for me, it's not an issue of debate or discussion. I deported quite a number of them. So if the government drops its guard, like I believe this administration has done, to the ridiculous extent of giving passports to criminals and so on and so forth, it's unfortunate for the country. We ought not to do it. Let's just say it clearly. We ought not to do it. We are supposed to protect our country, the integrity of our nation, and ensure that we respect the image of our nation.
However, while summing up in his conclusion, Matiang'i challenged the government to stop blaming the opposition but rather to use the sufficient machinery and capability at the disposal to arrest the perpetrators of violence and address the matter of goonism in Kenya. Thank you and keep on subscribing.